research, um, and um, and I, and we've been really addressing what NASA really wants. So we've been very successful from that perspective. But I was having a hard time figuring out, even though we are investing, and have been, and will continue to invest in assets, building capacity here in the state. They're not really well connected per se in terms of a higher vision. So I came up with the idea about a possible spaceport that's more unique. It's different than the other spaceports, the other approved spaceports in the country, about 10 of them, I believe, because of the assets, geographic assets that we have. We have Loring Air Force Base, or Loring Commerce Center now, and we certainly have Brunswick Landing. So the cost of doing something like this would be less prohibitive. But what I was trying to look at to see is can we have, from an economic and educational development or workforce development perspective, some higher vision that will unify and support the various natural-based industries in the state that are increasingly relying on data from space, from satellites and things of that nature, and develop applications and so on and so forth. So I kind of had that idea running in my mind, and I shared it with a couple of board members, and that led to that meeting that you referenced. I think it was in March of 2017, and to say, hey, here's what we're thinking. And everybody was saying, you hear the comments is that, no, really, Maine, are you kidding? And then when we kind of lay out the facts and the potential, bolded as it is, everybody kind of came around, and they said, instead of saying, really, Maine, they would say, why not Maine? It is bold. It is very difficult to do. And I always hark back to a speech that President Kennedy had made at Rice University in '62, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, where he challenged the nation for the first time, or more publicly than before, to send man to the moon and return him safely. But that was done because of national security purposes, Sputnik and all of that stuff. But he challenged the nation. He said, this is something that's really important. Be aware there's going to be major investment with taxpayers' money, but the return on the investment is going to be significant, not only in terms of getting someone to the moon and back safely, but the underlying infrastructure in both research, education, and commercialization will be the tide that will attempt to lift many boats. And that, in fact, has happened. So that's kind of the principle, the philosophy, and the approach that I followed, is that if you develop the spaceport and develop it in a way that's integral and connected to the natural resource economy in the state, and oh, by the way, it would just create a new space economy, not to replace the others. That's kind of the higher vision that I was looking for. That and space is so, everybody likes space, but if they see that connection and how it really will help the other industries and provide educational opportunities for our students, keep our high school students here in the state in developing new businesses, attract new families, entrepreneurs, engineers, and scientists, and everybody up and down the supply chain, the value chain. That's what we're looking at, and that's why we decided to do the spaceport.
I'm curious, Terry, what is it like to have this idea and to be kind of workshopping it, and to slowly realize, like, oh, this isn't crazy, we can do this, and now we almost have some sort of an obligation to see this thing through. I mean, that must be like kind of exhilarating, but also a tremendous weight. Am I barking up the right tree?
No, that's the right tree to bark up to. I mean, it's one of those things you have to be careful what you wish for. And I think we're in that stage right now. Fortunately, we've gotten a lot of support from different sectors in the state, certainly from the legislature. As you're aware, Seth, when you went to the hearings, the state's economic development committee unanimously approved the creation of the Leadership Council. It was to develop the strategic plan, and you and I were there. And then the following day, I think that was in March, the following day, the legislature locked down because of COVID-19. But fortunately, we were able to get grants from the Economic Development Administration out of the Department of Commerce, and matching funds from the Maine Technology Institute to develop a strategic plan. And that's what we're doing right now. And what we hope to do is to, our goal is to have some kind of a both investment strategic plan, list of partnerships, anchor tenants, and all that stuff, financials, to and what the expectations are from the state government in terms of co-funding some aspects of the construction of the spaceport in partnership with the private sector. Our goal is to do that by November, December of this year. So there's a lot of, yes, it's great to be there, but it's a big weight. It's really, we can't fail. We've gone so far. There's a lot of interest. And the last thing I want to do is to really fall flat in our faces when we have this kind of support. I mean, the window's very small, not only from a competitive basis on a national scale, but also in terms of the momentum that we need to maintain in the interest of the spaceport for the good of the state.
Well, we are really, really proud to be breaking ground, figuratively only, we hope.
Absolutely. It's really, we're really pleased. One of the things that was really important in the selling, not only showing what we have in terms of the infrastructure of Brunswick Landing, as well as Loring, and hopefully something in Washington County, whether it's a barge or something like that, is really having companies like BluShift on board. Knowing that there are such assets, an entrepreneurial company that's building the small rockets, the kinds of rockets that the spaceport is intended to launch. Knowing that we have one, at least BluShift, and hopefully Vault will do the same thing, but we'll be able to attract. That's not enough. I mean, we can't survive only on BluShift, and the spaceport can't. We have to, as you said earlier, is that we're looking at this to become certainly a regional, definitely a national, and hopefully international asset. So people can use a spaceport for launch, but also to attract the entrepreneurs and the skill sets that and the workforce to do research and development, commercialization, to develop applications as a result of the data that will be downloaded from the satellite. Building the satellites, being innovative in different ways of those CubeSats, engaging our students in some of that work, allowing all schools to have access to satellites, where now it's very difficult. I mean, if you can imagine, all of our schools will have 24/7 access to satellite data and use it as they want, and get higher education involved. So, in developing those applications for the marine industry, aquaculture, forestry, not only for Maine, but also from an international scale. So it's really, the spaceport is intended to help Maine and Maine's economy, but by doing that, you make it into, hopefully close to an international asset to generate the revenue and the skill sets that you need.
One of my favorite things from being at the stakeholder meetings for the spaceport is realizing, like, yeah, sure, we've got BluShift, we've got Vault, so that's 2 rocket companies, but there is so much more than that. I mean, the people, the IT experts that have shown an interest in participating, because data storage and processing is a huge part of this. Getting to see, the Tech Place and their business incubator and the innovation that they're already leading in, the UMaine's Center for Undergraduate Research, USM's CubeSat fabrication facility that they just rolled out. It's just all up and down, vertically, horizontally integrated. There is so much going on statewide in aerospace. We just it's almost like it's already happening. We just need a little direction, a little nudge to get everyone going in the same direction.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. It's as we said, we've and not solely because of space grants investment, but because there are those companies and and research programs that have been developed that are directly connected to aerospace and space research and technology development. Um, that's been developing organically, and we kind of helped that along. The other things have happened. I mean, you guys came to Maine or returned to Maine's, not because of space grant. You wanted to do something in the state, and there are a lot of companies that are involved that do that too. We have a good supply chain. It's not enough though, but many of the suppliers, companies have been involved in space exploration and technology development. So it's just a question of saying we have the semblance of the assets, both from research, businesses, and higher education, and certainly K through 12, putting those together in a very meaningful and strategic manner and build upon that by attracting more from the outside. That's the key part, because we cannot rely on our internal assets to make a spaceport successful. We really have to use that asset to attract others and build upon that for a successful spaceport.
So the Spaceport Leadership Council, it now exists, and they're putting together a report for the end of the year. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
That's awesome. So when that report comes out, how can people read it?
Well, we're going to make it public. We're going to do a series of public hearings around the state before we finalize it. We are early in this stage, but we're going to hopefully develop what we want to develop a website that will keep the public informed of the progress of this work. And then once we have the report finalized, that information will be uploaded onto our website so the public can have access to it. So we're not there yet, but it's something that we're trying to build.
Well, thanks again, Terry Shahada, Executive Director of the Maine Space Grant Consortium, and look forward to continuing to participate in Spaceport Maine.
Great. Thank you very much, Seth.
Thanks. Hi, Terry.
Hey, hi, Seth.
Great to chat, and thank you so much for being a part of this. Now, Terry, you are the Executive Director of the Maine Space Grant Consortium.
That's correct, yeah.
And I pronounced consortium right.
Right.
Good. So, and if you're just joining us, this is a BluShift Aerospace live stream of the Stardust 1.0 launch, marking Maine's first commercial launch, and the first commercial launch powered by bio-derived fuel in the world. We're in between interviews right now, so we wait for the next liftoff here, launch attempt. I can answer a couple questions from the chat. Joshua Robinson, is the flight ceiling being nearly the height of Katahdin a coincidence? Yes, although it has not escaped us. We definitely love that fact a little bit too much. Initially, Stardust was to fly to 4,000 feet above sea level. We got that increased to 5,200 feet above sea level, and we were going to use that increase in flight time to burn through more fuel. Yeah, sorry about the loop, guys. The interviews here have been reconfigured, and so we should not have that issue on the next one. All right, we're going to go to another interview. Carl Flora, president of the Loring Development Authority. These are the guys that paved the runway and taxiway that you may be parked on if you're tuned in to 92.9. These are the guys that gave us such a beautiful field office and are managing some just tremendous infrastructure up here. And we'll delve into that. And we'll delve into that a little bit in this interview. So Carl Flora, President and CEO of the Loring Development Authority and Loring Commerce Center. Thanks for doing this. And
absolutely.
Yeah. So and by this I mean not just facilitating the launch of Stardust 1.0, which the Loring Development Authority has been just beyond amazing in helping us get the job done. But you've been with LDA for a while, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I started late in 1995, about a little over a year after the base actually closed. I've been there through just about everything, starting from the very initial effort to strike a deal with the federal government to acquire the property, through the acquisition process, which took several years, as you might imagine. And then I've been involved in one way, shape, or form or another ever since then, and most of or all of the deals that we have struck with third parties to utilize the property.
Wow. And gosh, it's been really rough since the base closed.
Population of Aroostook County prior to Loring's closure was, I believe, around 87,000.
Okay.
I could stand to be corrected on that. But in the decade that Loring closed, the difference between the 1990 census, when Loring was open and not expected to close, and the 2000 census was around 15,000, if I recall correctly. So we lost 15,000 out of about 85 or 87,000. Yeah.
Wow. And so the mission of the Loring Development Authority is to kind of revitalize the base and kind of swords into plowshares, right? To repurpose the facilities on base for civilian use, commercial use mostly.
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
And so there have been some really interesting successes, and so why don't I share some of those?
Sure. Well, at the outset, there were actually 3 federal programs that were identified for Loring. One was the Defense Finance and Accounting Center.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's been a big success for us in the sense that it's our largest employer by a long shot, employing close to 600 people. And then there's a U.S. Department of Labor supported Job Corps Center. Job Corps has about anywhere from 2 to, on the low side, to as high as 400 on the high side students, most of whom live right there and complete a course of study. It's generally for students between the ages of 16 and 24, and they'll leave with a certificate or a degree in one of the trades. So they have a number of programs there, everything from the standard building trades to culinary arts, computer science, and a number of others. So you can get your CDL there, learn to drive a truck, all kinds of possibilities there. So they had been a long-term occupant of the Loring facilities as well. The third one was the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. A big portion, probably the largest portion of the Loring acreage, was actually designated as a National Wildlife Refuge called Aroostook Wildlife Refuge. And so the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service manages that property. That's mostly undeveloped property that would have been, wooded buffer area time that the Air Force occupied Loring.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we were talking about successes. One of the successes that sticks out in my mind is that after having gone through the BRAC process in the 1990s, which resulted in Loring's closure. The DFAS center that I alluded to was proposed for closure in 2005 as part of that BRAC round. We fought it. We felt as though it was a kind of a double BRAC in the sense that we'd already been closed once before. But at the end of the day, DFAS was trying to consolidate a bunch of smaller centers into 3 mega centers nationwide, but we had a pretty strong argument that they should keep us open as a smaller center of excellence, because the work that was being performed by the employees at the DFAS center here in Limestone was top notch. The place sold itself. It was one of the cheapest operating locations they had, and the quality of the product coming out the other end was beyond reproach.
Wow. So you were able to, I didn't realize that DFAS was under consideration for not being. Wow. It was
recommended for closure by the Department of Defense, but the BRAC process reversed that and actually increased the size of the center. So
wow.
Yes, that was a good
well done
development for us. So.
Wow. And so looking forward, I'm sure that there are plenty of things on the drawing board, not just the spaceport. What are some of the things that you're working on moving forward?
Well, there's a lot of different things. One of the things that we did particularly well was, you'll recall, Maine Military Authority, the refurbishment of the military vehicles and equipment. Mm-hmm. Humvees, where people would see Humvees going up and down the road all the time. So we had, at one point in time, Maine Military Authority was our largest tenant in terms of facilities occupied. They occupied nearly 500,000 square feet of industrial buildings and employed over 500 people. From that, they've over the years lost ground. The military work began to dry up somewhat. They tried to make a switch into the civilian world, and that did not meet with as much success. And so Maine Military, over its lifetime, from starting in 1997 and ending in 2018, 21 years, went from 0 to over 500 and back to 0. So, but we always felt as though we had the skills in the workforce to try to rebuild some of that. So those are the kind of things we're going to try to look at. Manufacturing opportunities of all types, anything from construction of vehicles, housing structures. There's and some advanced manufacturing using composite materials and other space age things. We'll be looking at all those opportunities, and we've got a line on a few of them. So
now, the Maine Military Authority, the spaces that they used to occupy, is that mostly taken up by Loring Industries?
Loring Industries occupies a couple of the facilities that were formerly occupied by Maine Military. Yep.
Got it. Okay. Yep. And also looking at the spaceport, I think you told me we had a phone call a couple weeks back where you mentioned that there's really no reason that a 737 couldn't land, like, God forbid there was like an emergency landing situation or something, right? That the main runway at Loring is, good to go, usable, and that maybe a little bit of refurbishment to like some of the hangars might really be all that it takes to start getting, something like Pegasus or Virgin Orbital, or Vault Enterprises, right? Because they want to launch underslung from like a 737 or similar, right? And so
yes.
We could even have in-state companies operating that way out of Loring pretty quickly.
Yeah. I think Loring's the most obvious role in terms of space launching, launching of spacecraft is probably what they refer to as a horizontal launch, which is, as you suggested, a rocket that is mounted under the wing of an aircraft that takes it up to a fairly high altitude and gives it a good head start on getting into orbit.
Yeah, that would be really terrific to see. And there's a lot of other stuff across the space, right? I mean, you're sitting on some fiber optic cable. That must have been some pretty forward-facing technology when that line got laid down, right?
Well, there was this. I'm sure there was a lot of fiber in place when the Air Force left. I'm sure some of that probably is being used to support the functions at the Defense Finance and Accounting Center. But yeah, we've had a data center at Loring that was, as I understand it, handled a tremendous amount of data coming in and going out. So the fiber network that would have been needed to support that had to be pretty robust. And in addition, we have a portion of the so-called three-ring binder fiber network that was installed back in the late 2000s.
So what is the three-ring binder? Because I've heard that bandied about a couple of times.
Well, I'm certainly no expert, but at the time it was, if you recall, the financial meltdown, and there was a lot of effort to identify shovel-ready projects that could be, utilized to rebuild infrastructure. And so at that point in time, there was a group here in Maine that was very forward-thinking in terms of building out the fiber system and connecting different parts of the state. And so the idea at the time was to put a fiber network in place. As it happens, they decided to run a section of it right through Loring, and so we have access to that fiber system. At the time, it was intended to be open access fiber, meaning anybody who had the equipment and the wherewithal could, light a strand. It would be, what people refer to as dark fiber. Yeah. So that infrastructure is in place and able to be used here at Loring.
Wow. And data storage is kind of one of the unsung heroes of a really vertically integrated kind of spaceport experience, right? That you need. I mean, launching the satellite is all well and good, and maybe that's the fun part that people show up to watch. But once it's up there, you need to be able to talk to the satellite, or at least listen to it, and then you need to put all that information somewhere safe and be able to process it, analyze it, run transformations, that sort of thing. And so Limestone could be a huge part of that as well, and kind of turning the Spaceport Maine into a really vertically integrated one-stop shop, right?
Yep. Well, I do believe that the data center that I mentioned has, the potential to be developed along those lines, no doubt.
And when I was up there last time, I managed to scrounge up a little bit of free time, and I got to go check out the engine testing facility, and that was an experience. I don't think I've ever seen a door so thick, but I mean that I just walking in there, you could just I don't know, you could see the potential of the place.
Yes. Yeah.
And imagine the engines that they must have tested. Now, did it see all that much use before the base closed? I heard it was it was a fairly new building at the time.
Yeah, my understanding is that the Air Force built a fair number of those test cells at different Air Force bases, perhaps in the 1980s. So I think you're right. It was probably built, maybe seen some use, but not a whole lot of use before they decided that it was time to close down.
Are you on the leadership council?
Well, I participated in the Maine Space Grant Consortium. Up until now, I have sort of retired. So I'm kind of in limbo where I've announced my retirement, but I'm still doing a little work on the side. So the extent of my future involvement is in question, but it is certainly something that I would like to see move forward, and something that I support. I think it's a great opportunity for the state. The Maine can really play a significant role in the emerging space industry. And as you know, there's a lot of facets that go well beyond just the launching and the spaceport, what you think of as spaceport activities. There's the whole side of storing and managing the data that's collected from satellites. There's the whole communications side, potential for cell phone and broadband or satellite-based communications, including broadband, internet. The sky's the limit. And then there's the whole side of, once you collect data that you've picked up with some kind of sensor, what do you do with that data? People have to go through it, analyze it, figure out what it means, catalog it. There's just a whole, I guess they would call it a value chain.
Yep.
In the space business.
Love that phrase. Yep. So a huge part of suborbital flight is, sounding rockets, but also balloons can play a part, and also aircraft flying a parabolic trajectory. So we know you can fly aircraft out of that runway, which I believe was a backup runway for the space shuttle, right? So
it was, yes.
And balloons. Now there was a blimp that operated out of Loring for a time, right? So doing something with another blimp or with balloons, that would also probably be a pretty quick operation to kind of prepare for that, right?
Yep. Yeah, we've had several, I guess you'd call them R&D type projects, and this one was that you're referring to was an unmanned airship, kind of like the Goodyear blimp without a pilot. Except, well, there is a pilot, but he's on the ground.
Right.
But in other respects, the blimp was being developed for military uses and security uses. If you think about it, an airship can remain aloft for a long period of time. It can essentially stay in one place and serve as persistent surveillance, or it can fly a predetermined route, and can surveil the ground from an altitude of anywhere from, say, 500 feet up to 10,000 feet.
Any other thoughts you might want someone watching this to walk away with?
Well, just that we're happy to be involved with the development of the space industry in the state of Maine. Hope that we can play a big part going forward. And Loring is locationally challenged a little bit. People look at
the Edwards Air Force Base kind of New England, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I've got to just say, like, thank you so much to you and to Neil, the property manager at LDA, for our beautiful field office, and you know, for maintaining the runway, and you know, clearing it of the drifting snow and the ice and everything. And it's you know, it of course we couldn't have done it without you guys, but it's to be, you know, welcomed and supported in such a way has just really meant the world to us.
Yeah, well, that's good. We're happy that you're happy. And we certainly hope that this launch is successful and catapults you to the next level in the development of your business.
Well, thanks, Carl. Well, Carl Flora, President and CEO of the Loring Development Authority and the Loring Commerce Center, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
You bet. My pleasure.
So, Carl Flora, President and CEO of the Loring Development Authority and Loring Commerce Center, thanks for doing this. And
absolutely.
Yeah. So, and by this I mean not just facilitating the launch of Stardust 1.0. And if you're just joining us, this is a BluShift Aerospace live stream of the launch of Stardust 1.0. This will be Maine's first commercial launch, and the first commercial launch of a rocket powered by a bio-derived fuel in the world. You just saw or listened to an interview with Carl Flora, President and CEO of the Loring Development Authority. That's who manages the Loring Commerce Center, formerly Loring Air Force Base. And that is our launch site today. As folks are noticing in the comments, we are now looking at closer to 3 p.m. for launch. There is a possibility that that figure does get moved up just a little bit. The oxidizer tank has been refilled. So now we're at heating again. But the oxidizer is still warm from the first 2 launch attempts of the day. So heating may not take quite as long this time. Normally we budget an hour for that. And we'll keep you posted on how that goes. If you're just joining us, this is a BluShift Aerospace live stream of the launch of Stardust 1.0, our prototype sounding rocket. This will be Maine's first commercial launch, as well as the first commercial launch of a rocket powered by a bio-derived fuel in the world. We have 3 commercial payloads aboard. I went through them before. I'll do so again briefly. Falmouth High School worked with the University of Maine and the University of Southern Maine to outfit their CubeSat prototype with a GoPro, X-in-a-box chips to collect flight data, including acceleration, pressure, temperature, and humidity. And the team was recently featured on an excellent episode of Chasing Maine by Roger McCord of the Maine Monitor, which, as time allows, we may show here with permission. Kellogg's Research Labs is testing the vibration dampening properties of nitinol, a shape memory alloy of nickel and titanium in conditions of a rocket launch. And these guys are real veterans of aerospace. In 2019, they supplied more than 100 components for satellites that were launched. And Rocket Insights out of Massachusetts is filling their CubeSat enclosure with traditional Dutch wafer cookies called stroopwafels, an homage to their Amsterdam-based parent company Dept, as well as a sort of rock tumbler filled with samples of tourmaline, a gem for which Maine is quite famous. And they will use the vibration of launch to try and tumble the rocks.
Hi there, it's Gadeep from the National Outreach, and welcome to the BluShift Aerospace Stardust 1.0 launch. Live stream. The launch is expected at 2 o'clock p.m. CDT and 3 p.m. EST. And the weather in Limestone, Maine, where the launch is 18 degrees Fahrenheit with a 2% chance of snow. The weather is provided by weather.com, as you can see the ticker scroll down below. Thanks for watching. The live stream will continue until 4 o'clock p.m. EST.
And as we stand by for the historic launch of Stardust 1.0, a couple updates from Mission Control here. The igniter, basically a smaller motor, is refueled, and it's at pressure. The oxidizer run tank is fully loaded, and we are now heating that tank within about 20 degrees of nominal now. And so with the normal amount of time that procedure takes, and time for a couple extra system checks thrown in, and the weather continuing to hold very fair, the outlook is really good for a launch right around 3 p.m. Bruce Hiberlin Jr. asks if I were to drive to Brunswick to witness a BluShift launch in person, what is the closest public observation point without violating the range? Does anyone know? Well, at the BluShift office near Brunswick Landing, or the test site, it is by invitation only. Public engine tests were on the drawing board up until COVID. And as we begin to recover, we can revisit that. Now, BluShift will never launch anything from Brunswick, although that runway could also be used for horizontal launch. Basically, you mount a rocket to an aircraft, usually something along the lines of a 737. And then from the executive airport there could be flown out over the ocean for a launch. For a vertical rocket launch, Brunswick is just too populated to launch safely. So we look forward to doing more static fire tests there. But for a launch, you'll probably be able to find us either up here at Loring, or as our rockets get a little larger, down at the Down East Coastal Launch Site. Now, I can't speak for the folks that will be running these facilities once they become a spaceport, but I certainly would not be surprised if there was public viewing both at Loring and at the Down East Launch Site. Chicken Takeover asks if we can return the chair shot. Be assured, sir, that I am monitoring the mission control camera, and I'll bring that shot back up just as soon as there's someone in the chair. With the cold, there's been a little bit of innovation since we got here, and so we figured out how to control most of the rocket systems from inside our vehicles. Christian Bradley Hubbs asks if some of the BluShift team previously were on a college-sounding rocket team. Yes, Luke Sandin, our senior mechanical engineer, was a part of Team Ursa out of the University of Maine, and they launched 2 rockets over at least his time there. FS Airsoft UK asks, are you going to build bigger rockets after Red Dwarf, rockets that could compete with the market of, or compete on the market with Rocket Labs? And what is the turnaround time of a booster if recovery is possible? 2 excellent questions. So we do not, at least currently, plan to compete with even Rocket Lab. We want to see if SpaceX and Blue Origin are the freight train to space, and Rocket Lab is the bus to space. We want to be the Uber to space. With our business model, the goal is for nanosat customers to be the primary payload, or to get that treatment. That they get to pick what orbit they want to go to, that they get to not be delayed for months in some cases if the primary payload, somebody else's payload, needs something done to it. And with our fuel and our modular engine and our small team, we plan to do that cost competitively. So the plan currently does not call for a payload bay with a capacity greater than 30 kilograms, though that could change. As for the turnaround time of a booster, technically all stages are just clusters of that same modular engine. And the goal is to, well, I'm not going to say anything that just yet, because as we scale up, this hybrid engine aboard Stardust 1.0 is about 6 inches in diameter. And our flight optimized engine, which you'll start to see on Stardust 2.0, that's going to be the marvel that gets used on every iteration after that. And just because we haven't finalized the design, I don't want to make any predictions on how quickly a marvel will be refurbished. All I can say is watch this space. Someone G asks, as someone who just heard about BluShift today, well, welcome. Could you explain a bit more about your fuel architecture? Well, someone G, the fuel itself is proprietary. It is a solid fuel. It is separate from the oxidizer. It is in a hybrid motor. We've got a liquid oxidizer and a solid fuel. They mix in the presence of an ignition source. And that's how you get your combustion. Now, solid rockets have incredible energy density, and liquid rockets have throttle ability, start-stop ability. And so if done effectively, a hybrid can kind of deliver the best of both worlds. Now, the biggest challenge with hybrids is that because the solid fuel is the reaction chamber itself, your rocket engine is effectively changing shape as the pressure and temperature changes all around you. And so getting a stable plume or stable combustion can be a little tricky. But we're about to demonstrate that we figured that out. If you're just joining us, this is a BluShift Aerospace live stream of the launch of Stardust 1.0, Maine's first commercial launch of a rocket, and globally the first launch of a rocket for commercial purposes powered by a bio-derived fuel. We are on track for launch by roughly 3 p.m. as we heat the oxidizer and perform final system checks here at the Loring Commerce Center in Limestone, Maine. A couple of people that we should mention. So, Sasha Derry is our founder and CEO. He founded the Alta East store in 1999, selling solar panels and batteries and charge controllers and inverters. It's now a $24 million a year organization, and acquired Real Goods. Folks maybe have read the Solar Living Source book. But that occurred in 2019. A little before that, he founded BluShift in 2014. Brooke Halverson, our lead test engineer, is responsible for working on performance testing, logistics, manufacturing, and hybrid rocket motor assembly and testing. Luke Sandin, senior mechanical engineer, assists with the performance testing, oxidizer system design and evaluation, MATLAB code development, and staging simulations. David Hayrikian, mechanical engineer, is experienced in 5-axis CNC milling, founder of Maccabee Tech, and responsible for CAD/CAM development of hybrid rocket motor components and developing production processes. Bonnie Etheridge, executive assistant, aka air traffic control, has been working with Sasha for 8 years now, which is longer than anyone else on the BluShift team. Matt Parker, a technical advisor, experienced aerospace professional with a focus in test and launch operations for propulsion systems. Led test engineering teams at SpaceX, where he helped develop, qualify, and produce Merlin engines for the Falcon 9 launch vehicle. Oversaw development operations of the Rutherford engine for Rocket Lab's Electron smallsat launcher, and now manages the engineering team at Fiber Materials Incorporated here in Maine to develop advanced composite materials for missile defense and space systems. I'm Seth Lockman, Communications Director, in charge of public, media, and government relations, and responsible for BluShift's web video and social presence. We've had 3 interns to date, thanks to grants from the Maine Space Grant Consortium. James Giltner assisted with layup of carbon fiber fuselage and the main rocket casing of Stardust, wired the recovery tether and quick disconnect arms, and helped with on-site testing and rocket stacking or integration. Ben Lemieux, mechanical engineering major at UMaine, wants to focus on rocket engines and aerospace engineering. He was integral in rewiring the test stand as we upgraded to move from the 4-inch diameter to 6-inch diameter Marvel prototype as part of the NASA grant. And he was able to make it up to Limestone today to help with the launch. Kaylee Gallant helped model oxidizer behavior in the tank, in the oxidizer tank during flight. And that very oxidizer tank is now nearing the temperatures necessary to launch. And David just reached out to me through the work chat and pointed out we should thank Dragon Plate for helping hit all of our production deadlines. If you're just joining us, this is a BluShift Aerospace live stream of the launch of Stardust 1.0, Maine's first commercial rocket launch, and the first commercial rocket launch powered by a bio-derived fuel in the world. Just got the update that launch is imminent. And here is the onboard camera, quality of signal. And a little bit of buffering difficulty there. System has resumed nominal function. We are go for live stream. We are go for launch.
Number nine. You hear me? Is everyone ready? Number nine. You hear me? Oh, there they are. They just pulled up. Okay.
Lead test engineer Brooke Halverson preparing to count down. And looks like we're going to hold for a minute here. Some snowmobilers pass it on through. All right, resuming countdown.
I've been maintaining. Nine, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition sequence start. Sirens running.
Yes, go.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
my
shit!
gosh.
Fuck you! Fuck you! But Marvel has touched down. Pearl has touched down. Main chute is down. And Stardust has touched down nominally within just a few hundred feet of the launch trailer. A beautiful flight.
Thank you.
Definitely an atmosphere of celebration here at the launch site. The main chute is still blowing in a gentle but steady wind. All right, we'll have footage of the flight for you as soon as we can. All right. At this time, Kevin Bouchard of Frontier Transport is leading the team of snowmobilers out with a sled fabricated just this morning to retrieve Stardust. Looks like one of our cameras got knocked over during the ascent there. Getting a lot of questions for footage, of course. We're going to get footage to you as soon as we can. Now, if we can't do that in the next couple of minutes, there will be some high-resolution videos on our YouTube channel in the coming days. Yeah, we'll get those stats for you guys as soon as we can as well.